Hi, how's it going? So I thought again this week we'd just do another improvised, unplanned kind of video. It's typically the way that I approach drawing anyway, so it just seems to fit. But maybe in the future I'll try and get a few things sorted. But this is going to be pretty agendaless. So anyway, I've made a start. I did a few drawings, and I thought, oh, I'll do a video because I'm not actually around tomorrow, so it's slightly earlier than what I usually plan. But anyway, so as you can see, I've already done a couple of faces. I might do one more from a different angle, and these are all from imagination, subconscious. I try not to say from imagination because that implies that I think about what I'm drawing before I draw it, which I don't typically. A lot of it is motor skill. A lot of it is just trying things out and seeing what works. I've drawn people, faces, character portraits, for lack of a better term, for a long time now, so I loosely know what's going to come out. And by this stage of the drawing, I'm just reacting to the first bit, so it's not so much a subconscious thing anymore. And that can all depend on how much in the flow state, again, for want of a better term, I'm in, because sometimes I'm completely switched off and I'm just letting the pen do whatever it does. But if I'm recording myself and trying to think of things to say, it's a little bit more considered, I suppose. I'm a little bit more self-aware. So it's not. Yeah, they're just. I get told off because people say I shouldn't call them doodles, but they are doodles. Like, I'm essentially, they're without thought. It's just a bit aimless, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, you know. They're sort of subconscious. They're a little bit from imagination. They're no reference. They're whatever they are, you know. It's the way I've always done it ever since I was a kid. So yeah, right. I'm going to be bold and try and draw a figure. Now, I tend to make lots of mistakes with these, and especially today because I've not really practiced. I've not practiced at all. So we'll see. But again, I'm just making marks here, and by this point I can sort of see, all right, well, the forehead probably wants to go there, judging off the hair, the hairline. But it's kind of a process of elimination. It's a difficult thing to explain, which is why I don't teach, because I don't really know how or what I'm doing in a lot of ways. It's more action and reaction than it is academic to me. But anyway. But already I can see a few things that I'd probably change if I was doing this in pencil or doing this digitally. But I kind of like the fact that it's a permanent thing, ink. I kind of like that it's not necessarily how I'd do it if I was to be all perfectionist about it. Because that's the other thing, I'm a massive perfectionist. And I hate working digitally because of that, because I feel like I'm forever second guessing myself. With this, it's like I make a mistake and you've got to live with it, and it's fine. Like, it doesn't stop being any less of a drawing. It just means I've learnt to manage my expectations, I suppose. But anyway, so by this stage, I'm still unsure what's going to happen. It's usually to do with the arms, and I'm doing lots of practice with arms from studies. Hands can be a bit of a sticking point, although I love drawing hands, but I'm never quite sure how they're going to come out when it's one of these sorts of drawings. But again, that's the fun of it. I'm not trying to do something perfect. I'm not trying to even necessarily follow the rules. I'm kind of just happy something being readable at this point. So if you know that that's a hand, that's fine. But don't get me wrong, like, it's nice when it looks exactly like a hand. So yeah, it's a little bit of a weird angle, but again, it is what it is. So it kind of looks like she stood on a table or by a table. So we do something like that. Alright, we'll do one more thing, I suppose. A little bit of time. So let's try and do something slightly out of my comfort zone. Try and do a few cats. It's something else I've been trying to fill my head with. Because when I was very young, up till being maybe teenage, all I used to draw was animals. I used to love drawing animals. And I still do, but because I've spent so much time doing figure from observation, and then also trying to replicate people as pseudo accurately as I could, it means that a lot of my animals start to take on slightly human characteristics. So I'm trying to figure that out a little bit and get a little bit more accustomed to that. So yeah, when it comes to studies, that's kind of what it is for me. It's about becoming more articulate with what I can do, drawing in this kind of way, in this more imaginative, subconscious kind of approach. And sometimes I'll just, do random shapes. Sometimes I'll start somewhere that I don't typically start, or I'll draw some kind of funny eyeball, and I'll think, oh, well, what can that be? And then I'll take it from there. So I've no idea what this is. It could be an octopus. It's got that sort of eye. But then we could throw something else in there. Maybe like a trunk. And then it becomes something else. So this is another way that I approach a more subconscious, quote unquote, approach. And sometimes I'll just second guess myself and do something like that, and try and react to it a little bit. But again, that's making it sound like that, you know, I'm thinking deeply about any of this, which I'm not. It's just trying to find the words to explain it, I suppose. Could have a face there, that'd be really horrible and creepy. Looks like he's in the water. And usually I probably wouldn't rush something like this as much as I am right now, but obviously I'm still figuring out how to pace these videos. So it's almost as if she's looking down in the tank. Sometimes I'll go through, if I'm particularly happy with something, I'll occasionally try and decorate it a little bit more. I'll add a bit more render detail, maybe some lighting. Sometimes if I'm unhappy with something, I'll try and add a little bit more. I'll throw a little dry brush kind of thing on it to give it maybe something that make it fit better. But it's very trial and error. And I think that's what I want to try and put across in these videos, why I'm doing them. It's the trial and error approach. It's the lack of everything has to be perfect. It's the have fun with it. And don't get me wrong, sometimes it's not a bad thing to try and aim for something that's more accurate or something that's more detailed. You know, it's whatever you want to do. But there's a lot of fun to be had in just making random stuff, you know. But yeah, I'll try and fit one more thing in, and then I'll try and aim for another figure. Another reason I like to start with these doodles is to figure out what it is I'd like to practice or look at using a reference, and hopefully learn a little bit more about. And like I said, it's more about becoming articulate. It's more about being able to say what my mind is trying to tell me, you know, in terms of that sort of more subconscious thing. I mean, I might have mentioned it before, because it's an analogy I've used a few times when talking to people, but like how a jazz musician learns their scales and what scale goes with what chord in order to improvise. And I kind of see it like that. So it's more of a feeling. But I kind of know how what a face is meant to be, and then I just improvise on what I kind of know. But it's always foggy, or like automatic writing. You know, you've got to know how to spell words in order to write subconsciously in that sort of fashion. And then sometimes those words will say something, and it might be something that's bothering you, or it might be, you know, just something that you didn't know you were capable of. So that's what interests me. That's why I do this. It's not necessarily to, you know, attempt to show off or something, which I do worry about, which is silly. I shouldn't worry what other people think of me, but, you know, I'm really not interested in saying, oh, look what I can do. And in a lot of ways, I don't feel like this looks particularly great, you know, but anyway, we'll have this be the last face and maybe the last drawing. It's an angle that I'm still getting to terms with. But again, it's making mistakes, trying to figure out where you've gone wrong, and then looking at, in this case, a face that's looking tilted upwards, seeing what the proportions do and the angles do, and trying to memorize that, then trying to almost replicate it in a way. Well, that's certainly the more study side of these more imaginary drawings that I do. Because like I say, most of the time I just make a squiggle and try and see what it is. Anyway, we'll leave it there. And thanks for watching. And I'll see you next week, hopefully. Bye-bye.